Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the entire board is present. We can conduct the business as planned. We did finish up a study session on contracting possibly with the Great Lakes Water Authority. That will come up in the future. We're hoping to improve our service, our deliveries to the residents. Let's see, at this time I'll consider additions and or deletions to tonight's agenda. And let's see, I'm going to petition the board that I'd like to make a presentation to Miss Betty Ann King and open tonight's meeting with that.
Support.
Okay, move supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budney. Those in favor of adding a proclamation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That will be added. Request we add the audit report. We got the audit presentation and the audit report acceptance or denial as an action item later in the meeting. I move that we add the audit report to tonight's agenda. Support. Okay, again, moved by supervisor and seconded by Trustee Budney to add an audit report as action item 7. And I would like to add a police commission appointment as action item 8 tonight. Okay, moved by the supervisor, seconded by the treasurer. Those in favor of adding action item 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And
You move very fast on that one. Is it appropriate for the supervisor to make that motion? Should that be made by a board member, according to Robert's rules?
There's no restriction on who makes. We prefer the liaisons, but there's no restriction.
I think that would have been more appropriate.
Well then, Trustee Bletcher, would you like to introduce the deletion?
I make the motion.
Okay, to delete action or consent agenda item 6. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Whoa.
Now I'm lost.
Okay,
8.
we're deleting
You didn't.
consent agenda item number 6.
You didn't ask for the nays on the other one.
All right. Those in favor of adding police commission appointment as action item 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Is that Tom or Jim?
The nay was mine.
Okay. So recorded. All right. Thank you for allowing me to correct that.
Because I
Tried to blow it through. Okay, and then for the deletion of consent agenda item number 6. As the trustee liaison, Mr. Bletcher, would you introduce that?
I so move.
Second. Deleting consent agenda item number 6. Board members in favor of that, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Trustees Budney and Malvesto in opposition. Oh, golly. Other additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda stands as amended. Let's see, at this time, we'll go to presentations. And the first one, I say some parts of this job are better than others, and this is one of the best parts. And Jenny, would you be good enough to accept? I know your mother would. I hope she's comfortable and warm, and her and Jackie are keeping an eye on things. Could you come up and, because I'm going to read this and I'm going to present it to you. Actually, I will walk back and present it. But so most of us who raised kids here for the last 30 years or so, 40 years maybe, when you came across a baby bird or an injured animal, there was one person you called, and it was Miss Betty. A number of nicknames. I remember the bird lady, but I was reminded there's a better one here, and I just want to take the time to read this proclamation. So on behalf of all the residents of Grosse Ile Township, I would like to proclaim our deep appreciation and unending thanks to Miss Betty Ann King. Betty's lifetime of devotion to our island's smaller residents is eloquently described in an Anglican hymn, all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Sometimes addressed as Mother Nature, you're always there to nurse an injured creature. You're always there to nurture an orphan creature. Thank you, Betty Ann King, for making Grosse Ile Township and the entire world a better place for all to share. So proclaim this 22nd day of October, 2018, signed by me. So Betty, thank you, and God bless.
Full house.
Yep, that's all.
Okay, this is on behalf of my mom. She's got a laryngitis right now. Thank you for the endearing words. I surely enjoyed working with the wildlife, knowing I had the support and help from my husband and daughter. I have met so many caring people on the island, and I hope the positive attitudes towards wildlife will continue. I'm sure Julie will help that along. Thank you again.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay, with that, and again, best part of my job. Probably best part of all of our jobs. Now, the next presentation is something a whole lot less...
And there will be no applauding for you.
I'm just happy everyone showed up today to listen to my audit. It doesn't happen that often. Usually there's no one behind me, but today I get everyone here and I love it. So,
So the audit, our budget gets audited, our budget and all our actuaries get audited every year. The audit's completed by the end of September,
Yep. It has to be
and the
due to
audit
the
report
state.
filters in sometimes thereafter. We get briefed on it by our finance director, and the board either approves the audit report or sends it back for whatever reason.
so everything's been filed with the state. A lot of these you've seen before, so we're going to go over it fairly quickly. It was a very not eventful year. So the auditor opinion is a clean opinion, basically saying that we meet all the standards that are required. Again, we're looking at taxable value on this page. We can see that taxable value is going up. So by this year, 2018, we're over the 600 million amount, so we're getting there. So in 2017, 2008, so it is going up. Now we had this big decline, and it's slowly coming back. The increase for 2017 was 1.49%. So it is coming back slowly. If we look at our millages, you can see over the last couple years. Now these are all voted millages. The only millage not voted by the residents is the allocated mill for general fund. We talk sometimes about the Headley, if Headley didn't exist. If Headley didn't exist, the only millage that is not voted on by the township, that we're allowed by a township to assess without voter approval, is called an allocated mill. And it originally started at 1.85. With Headley reduction over the years, it's down to, and what that is the cost of inflation that it came into play with Proposal A, that it can't, or it can't raise, the value of the property can't raise more than inflation. That rate now is 1.25. If Headley didn't exist, the general fund would have another $350,000. So that it is a big deal to us, and we always say the Headley, if Headley didn't exist, what can we do to get Headley back? That we can't. They've looked into it, they argue it, but in that event, if we were just assessing what we could, we'd have an additional $350,000. If you look at the millage between 2015 and 2016, that was just by the increase of the voted mill for the bike path maintenance that recently happened. But from the 15.57 to the 15.44, that is all just based on Headley reduction every year, because of the way the economy is. If you look at property taxes, this is all property taxes. Again, you can see that if we take the taxable value times the millage, that comes up with your total taxes. Since the taxable value is going up, the money we receive from taxes is going up slightly. So it does make a difference as it goes up without any additional millages. Big thing we always talk about is employee cost. So here's our big major, we are people, we do provide services. People's what we do. We're here for the residents, and the majority of our cost, about 75–80%, is people across the board. If we look at gross wages over the years, it kind of fluctuates. The reason why it fluctuates, if we went from, it actually went down this year. In 2017, there might have been a buyout, so there was a big payout. So you're looking at total W-2 wages, and it's hard to compare because sometimes an anomaly will happen. We'll hire new people, people will leave, and they'll have a big buyout. So, but if you look at it's pretty much stable, just depending on the situation. Benefits and costs are hard to look at because of that. If you look at health care. If you look for 2017 to 2018, healthcare did increase substantially, but it wasn't due to rates. Our rates are staying fairly consistent. Our rates have been going up about 3%. So it's not necessarily rates, but it's due to the fact that we had several people retire and we hired a few people. So now instead of having one person on, we have 2 people on. So actually this big increase was due to about 7 additional people on retirement. So it also is with like if there's more families, if people opt out, if people end up having to opt in because based on their situation. So it's hard to compare healthcare across the board. It's easier probably to compare rates than it is the composition of employees. But the difference was due to the increase in people. As far as the white line is our MERS, is our pension system. Obviously know in the past that has been increasing because we are trying to fund our unfunded liability in a shorter period of time. So those are consistently going up so that we can have our underfunded portion paid quicker. So it's like your mortgage. They're shrinking our mortgage so we get it paid off quicker. So those are those calculations. As I say, it's hard to compare true apples to apples because of people's lifestyles and how it changes with retiring and new people and new hires. Now we'll look at the nuts and bolts of fund balances. This is their cash balances in the banks. If we look at, I'm really impressed with the recreation. Obviously we knew in the last several years that the recreation department was getting close to a zero fund balance, and once that happens, we have to take drastic measures to make it self-sustaining. In the past year, our fund balance went from almost $8,000 to $96,000. So definitely a lot of that is due to, you'll see later, that it's mostly cost containment. With the new recreation director, Kim has really watched her dimes, and every dime added up because she really did a good job. She sustained capital improvement until she figured out where she was at. So great job, Kim, on that. The farm is just a balance to maintain the farm. We look at library, that's basically stayed the same. Bike path, just not as much spending. Drainage stayed about the same. Roads, last year we had a $500,000 grant that was shown as a negative. This year we're at a normal level. So it was just an accounting measure, but right now the roads fund has about $224,000 in it. Open space has $824. So you can see the balances pretty much stay the same.
Ann?
Yep.
On the bike path, that's in the maintenance fund.
Yep.
That's
correct.
not new bike paths. That's
Right,
strictly
maintenance only.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The open space does have some property in it as well as maintenance. The property was about $500,000 and the maintenance is about $225. So that's both of them. Public safety building is just money available to do maintenance. The drug money is access to buy equipment. Fire operating went down a little, and fire equipment pretty much stayed the same. If we look at some of the revenues of the enterprise type funds, or that is not tax driven, but it's more fee driven, we can see that if we look at the Department of Public Works, we can see that the sale of water and charge, that's basically because our water usage is going down, because we did raise rates a little bit. Water rates increased 3%, but actual charges went down 4% due to usage. So that's how those change with the 4%. If we look at airport revenue, very consistent. The airport revenues increased due to CPI that the tenants are charged. And the fuel revenue went up basically because we all seen the same thing. Fuel prices went up, so we were getting more revenue in because the fuel prices went up from the prior year. As far as Water's Edge, the season was pretty typical now. These are about our typical revenues that we bring in from the golf marina and the pool. The reason why she did so well again is that cost containment measures that were taken. If we look at our outstanding debt, we're getting there. I'm seeing these numbers come down after 22 years. Public safety building is paid off, which is good. The next one down is the building authority, which is our Township Hall. So this has come down, and it will be paid off in 2025. So those numbers, the years are coming. It's going to be done pretty soon. We have compensated absences. These are payouts if people leave. We do have money set aside for that. If you look at the business type activities, the tax sewer system, this is paid with your taxes. This originally started at $40 million, so we're more than halfway down. So they'll start coming off at 2023, 24, 25. So those will start coming off. Capital improvement bonds are just the water and sewer mains. And the judgment bond was also for the sewer tax, and that was also on the tax bill, paid for by taxes. So the total outstanding, is about $33 million. Amount due with any one given year is $4.5 million. We don't want to leave out our unfunded liability for pension. In 2017, it went to from 13 million to 11, almost 12 million. There was concern last year through new state guidelines that we should not be under 60% funded. Last year we did have an issue. It was at 58%. We can now report that we are over 60% funded. It's almost 64% funded. So just with the year and timing, with interest rates being good, with some of the changes we do, it's helping the situation. On the other hand, the post-employment benefits, very surprised. In 2017, it was at 17 million. In 2025, this year, 3 years later, it went to 25 million. I said, why the big increase? Why $8 million in 3 years? And a lot of that has to do with we weren't funding it. We weren't required to fund it till recently. And also that they changed assumptions, major assumptions. So there was, on the way we were calculating opt-out payments, and also the interest rate. They're assuming the interest rate goes from a 4.3 to a 3. From a 4.5 to a 3.5. We have done stuff to make this better. We are now going to be required to have that done every year instead of every 3 years, so we can see once they do it again. We're trying to make some changes. We just had a trust put in place. We are taking measures, so hopefully when we see that number next year, that it will come down some. So I'm glad that we are getting it done every year instead of every 3 years. But again, these are actuaries. Actuaries are based on assumptions, and they change those assumptions anytime they feel it's necessary. So we always get to that game, what are we chasing? Why you keep changing my numbers?
And just so we don't have to explain this later, the Public Act 202 of 2017, sometimes referred to as the Public Shaming Act.
Right.
they laid two mandates down on a 60% funding requirement for pension liabilities. Pension liabilities are defined, and we have the GASB constraints, which probably shouldn't apply, but MERS and the state has applied them. It didn't help us a bit. But that is a defined entity, and we can calculate or have a rough calculation of what 60% of that is. The health care, it's undefined. And to try to put a number, 40% funding, against something that, A, is not required by law to be funded, although it sort of is now.
Right.
But it is a mess. And the health care changes weekly.
Right. Just as I said, my health care just went up due to just the composition of the people.
So what we're doing is we're being required by statute to chase a number that doesn't exist. And, we'll work on the legislature, but again, many communities had no money put aside for it. Those are the ones intended to be publicly shamed. We are working our way out, and the more I've peeled back the prior records on funding requirements, our funding levels, it's just been a mess over a long time.
Right.
We're moving in the right direction.
Just so you know, the average health care increase is about 12 to 15%. We are nowhere close to that. So they're using assumptions based that our history doesn't do it. So definitely this number is going to be challenged next year when we sit down, because our history doesn't show that. So they're just using basic history. So again, when you take these large numbers and you compound on themselves, they get outrageous. Now next we're just going to look at general fund. This is the same chart you've seen before. Property taxes. It's just all the different levels of what, this is all we operate with general fund. Property taxes, interest income, state shared revenue, license and permits, and other. Actually, still good news for Groseal is our license and permits. We had 14 new home builds in the last year of about $6 million. So we still are building new homes as you go around. Very helpful. If we look at our tax revenue, again, we're looking at that it's starting to go up very slowly from 2012 at about a rate of less than 2%. If we look at state shared revenue, this is also going up again, which is good. So that's basically the economy's doing well. We're getting our sales tax money, and so that's a good thing as well. Everything's heading in the right direction. Here's our expenditures. Again, this is all the administration and the police department. And obviously, again, the police department takes up 59% of the general fund. Everything else is calculated on there. If we look at general fund expenditures, if you look at it from year to year, everything pretty much stays the same. I mean, our budgets are pretty close to actual. You can see, I just thought I'd do that just to show people that it is. Unless there's an anomaly, like in the administration or something, it's pretty much, our budgets are pretty much set. If we look at our general fund balance and our revenues and expenses, you can see our expenses basically are running at about 2% per year, which it's very controllable. If you look at the bottom line, you can see, in 14 you pretty much break even. 15 there's a couple of years that we did bad, and this year, the year reporting under, we made $24,000. So we're breaking even essentially this year. So that was good. And then we look again at fund balance. Just as a chart-wise. Oh, and I wanted to relate that fund balance right now is sitting at about 42%, 42.4% of expenditures. They'd like your fund balance, industry would like our fund balance to be anywhere between 15 to 25%. So we are operating at a good level. And I think I am done with my presentation. I'm here for questions, and I also want to introduce Mike Georges, who's from Yo and Yo, who's the partner in charge of this job. So if there's any questions for any of us, I would take my time. Then I also want to let you know that reports will be online tomorrow. So I only made a couple copies now with computers, so they will be online, but if anyone needs an additional copy off the computer, I'd be glad to do that as well. So, any questions?
Were there anything found in the audit at all?
There was a couple, nothing that needs significant. There were some minor findings about changing fund balance for the better. There was a couple things that were done that were done for years, but it was just noted that we should probably do it differently. Fixed assets needed to be, for the DDA, needed to be all separate. So it was things that were there, but they could have been reported differently, I should say. Nothing was wrong. It just could have reported in a different fashion. So.
All right, last chance.
Right.
Can we ask a question? What I'd like to know is. Go on up. Yep, I'm going to try and do it from my seat. We've had several comments here about all of the water main breaks, and of course that valve was costly. And I noticed that this cutoff date is March 31st. These have impacted on another accounting period.
Right. Yeah.
What impact is that going to have? Is that going to make it tough to balance that budget for the coming season?
For the water? No.
Yeah.
No, the water, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
PRV was like 16,000.
Right. Those were
Wasn't
in the water.
tremendous.
They were capital improvements in the water department, and they were fine.
Well, I'm not sure I'm understanding what a PRV is. I'm saying
Right.
I'm saying we've had a lot of water main breaks.
Yep, they were all budgeted. We did budget them in the water department, and we're running
They actually
fine.
budgeted that
yes,
many?
Yes, we do. Well, we budgeted
But we budgeted enough, luckily.
Yeah.
Okay, you had enough
Cover-
money.
Yeah, we had enough.
Yep. So hopefully they just aside, and we should be within budget.
Okay, that's
Right?
what I wanted to know.
Yep. Any questions?
Okay, there's your last shot. Ann, thank you so much. This will come up for approval later in the evening. I want to take a minute now. In our consent agenda, we added some new members to the Festival and Community Events Commission. Mr. Novak, would you invite our and introduce
Absolutely.
our new volunteers?
Evening Supervisor and Township Board. We are bringing some new volunteers on, commissioners for the Festival Commission, and I'm going to bring them up here and let them say a couple things. They are going to be doing some awesome events. Their first event's coming up this Saturday, and it's right behind Supervisor Loftus' head. I don't know if you knew that was back there all night. And so first up, Karen Olenek. Karen, come on up and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hello, good evening. I know some of you, but anyways, I'm Karen Olenek. My background is marketing and interior design, and I also put on events and host various fundraisers for charities. So I want to thank you for bringing me on this committee, and I want to say I really look forward to working with all of you. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you for volunteering, Karen.
Welcome.
Next up, Kevin. Is it Lizinus?
Yep.
Lizinus. Kevin, Mr. Kevin.
Good evening, guys. My name is Kevin. I live at the end of Chatham in South Point. I just opened a home care company 2 years ago. It's called Synergy Home Care. And I joined because I just like to make sure people around me are happy. So I volunteered this past year, and I had a great time, so I had to join.
Good. Welcome aboard.
And Mr. Scott Ryan. Scott.
Been a resident of Grosse Ile for 22 years. Picked up some energy from watching the festival committee, and decided to join them. So.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Said he liked the energy that we produced on camera, and that's what made him come and sign up. I thought that was a great ad. So once again, because it is festival related and rec, don't forget this Saturday is the Haunted Hangar Party at the airport. It is going to be a great event. This is one of their first events they'll be working on if you all approve them. So once again, Kathy Alper. Kathy couldn't be here tonight because she had an emergency come up like an hour ago. So you'll see her running around and doing a lot of things. So thank you so much. And
They have been approved. They were part of the consent agenda.
Oh, but you didn't say yay or nay yet, did you?
We haven't approved it. No, that comes after.
Okay, well, maybe you are, maybe you aren't.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
So now we, at least, you know what?
We
Now
know who they are.
Now we know who we're voting on.
Kathy has dark hair, so when you see her around.
Well, we're not so sure about her then. Oh, golly. So completely lost
We're at brief public
We're
comment.
up at public comment limited to tonight's agenda item, so let's open it up to public comment. Okay, with none offered, I'll move into consent agenda. Mr. Treasurer.
All right, I'd like to.
Never done this before.
Yeah, kind of new. I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda. Excuse me, 18-057, which includes the minutes of the September 2024 regular meeting, the check registers dated through October 19th, 2018, approval to process and distribute payments through November 16th, 2018, the Festival and Community Events Commission appointments, who you've now met. Is 5 still on there?
Yes.
Yeah. Accept the Police Commission resignation, and that's it.
Support.
Okay, moved by Treasurer, seconded by Trustee Budney. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. Now, with that, again, thank you to our volunteers who have just joined, and to my good friend Joe Dixon. Thank you for your service, and best wishes for you and Beth. Tonight's action items. It's going to be the Carl Bletcher show for a while. Mr. Bletcher.
Supervisor,
Better him than me.
I move for the Township Board to promote, upon the recommendation of the Grosse-Ile Police Commission, Detective Sergeant Brent Harden to the position of Deputy Chief effective January 1, 2019.
Support.
And I'd like to add the salary, $81,750. That's normally added. It was left off inadvertently.
That is correct, Mr. Supervisor.
A salary of $81,750. If you would add that, please, Mr. Deputy Clerk. Okay, we're moved by Trustee Bletcher, seconded by Trustee Budney. History purpose. Do we need history, purpose, and explanation? We should. Chief? And Deputy Chief? Almost Deputy Chief.
Brent Harden here is currently a detective sergeant, and in the process of interviewing and recommendation by the police commission, recommendation by the current chief and the chief-to-be, Brent was picked to be promoted to deputy chief starting January 1st, 2019, and I would ask that the Township Board supports him in this issue. And Brent, if you'd just like to, I'll give you a chance just to say
well, I'd like
whatever you like.
Well, it's a little preemptive. I'd like to thank the board, so hopefully I get your vote. Following the chief's footsteps of him having the safest community for the period of time that he has is a lofty goal. Myself and the future Chief Warnick are up to the task, and we're going to continue that legacy, we hope. I work with a tremendous, great, competent and educated individuals that will support Chief Warnick and myself, and I think we can lead the department in the right direction. So thank you.
I'd like to, this time, some of his accomplishments. I remember captain of the dive team forever.
He serves a dual role, not only as soon to be our next deputy chief, but has been with the Riverview Fire Department for better than 2 decades, as I recall. Has been very active with the department, putting the dive team and working on that, putting the department, I think, into a position where you have leadership, you've demonstrated leadership position, you have people that believe in you, people that believe deeply in you. I've been on the commission for a very long time. I think I was involved with your hire, if I recall correctly. And I have never heard a single bad word about Brent Harden. I have heard how hard he works. You give him something. He's one of the quietest people you're ever going to meet. I think that you could fairly well say that 2 or 3 words would be a complete sentence with Brent. But he has demonstrated by his actions, by his words and deeds, I would think that we have nothing but smooth sailing ahead, and you will do an excellent job. You have some big shoes to fill. I see that John Straponiak is here tonight, so John was our deputy chief for a long time. I expect that you're going to be able to have every success and build upon what he and what Chief Porcerelli have built. I wish you well. I think you'll do a great job. You've demonstrated to this community, while you don't live here, your heart is here, your mind is here, and your soul is here, and you believe very deeply in the commitment to the community, and you have exercised excellent judgment. I would hope that the board will unanimously accept your promotion.
Thank you, Carl. Any other comments from the board? Those in favor of, let me read the motion. Following the recommendation of the Grosse Ile Police Commission to approval to promote Detective Sergeant Brent Harden to the position of Deputy Chief, effective January 1st, 2019, with a beginning salary of $81,750. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered?
Thank you.
Deputy Chief, thanks, Brent. Well, actually, number two, it's still a little more law enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I move to amend Section 12.5 of the Grosse Ile Township Code regarding possession, purchase, and consumption of alcohol by minors to conform to changes in the state law.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Bletcher, seconded by Trustee Budney. And we're going to let our attorney.
Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, this is what's typically referred to by everybody as the MIP ordinance. So last year, the state legislature took a look at the law, and after some changes, modifications, reviews of the current situation, how it was affecting minors that may have been charged with the crime, amended the state ordinance, or excuse me, state statute to indicate that first-time offense of a minor in possession charge would be a civil infraction, not a misdemeanor charge. And that went into place. So that was available to us in our the police department to issue citations under the state charge immediately on January 1st when it went into effect. At the time, it obviously was recommended to many of the municipalities that had corresponding local ordinances to consider modification of the same. At the same time, there were also rumblings that there could be possible objections, challenges to the ordinance as it was presented, and I didn't feel it was appropriate to bring that in front of the board, have you adopt it and change it, and then have to go through the process again if there were changes, because of the fact that we did have the state statute available to our officers to write it. So it's become time. It's become clear now that it's pretty much in place. We're kind of past those periods at which point that would be the case. So what we did is we took out the old section 12.5 of the ordinance and rewrote it such that it reflects it's almost identical to the state statute as far as the provisions, and this allows our officers to write either a ticket under the state statute or local ordinance at their discretion for violations if there is a minor in possession or has consumed alcohol within the township. So I can answer any questions about the ordinance if you have.
Has this been tested in court anywhere, the new state statute?
There have been a couple cases that have challenged it. Nothing's gone in front of the Court of Appeals that I'm aware of at this point. There's no indication from everything that I'm reading and corresponding, obviously, with other communities and local prosecutors. There's no indication that there's no type of a constitutional challenge or anything like that was in place. There was some sense on the other end. Typically, when laws become more stringent, there's more challenges than being less stringent. But I think generally people understood that maybe the intent of the law was there, but maybe possibly was on the side of potentially being maybe a little bit too harsh for an individual maybe that made a one-time mistake in their life at that age.
I don't know if this is something you can address at this meeting, but how often does something like this occur on Grosse Ile? How often is this ticket written on Grosse Seal?
5 this year? 8. Yeah.
So just for my edification, the difference between an officer writing against a state statute or the local statute?
The state statute, it goes to the Wayne County prosecutor to handle.
If we do it, it's 33rd? Or
Well, they would still do it at 33rd District Court under the state statute. But if we do a local ordinance and it goes through, we prosecute it locally. And then we have, obviously, the communication level is there between me and the officers and the detectives to make the determination what's appropriate.
Obviously, this is strictly for alcohol, not other illegal substances.
Right.
Did the state pass any law in regards to other substances similar to this?
Well,
that we would be looking at in the future doing the same thing.
I'm not aware of any at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
no,
curiosity.
there's constant discussion about modification of the possession of marijuana, given the cards. It's been back and forth, and there's constant discussion about how they're going to do, how to handle it. If you talk to any community that has district court prosecutions, that for whatever, it's with the medical marijuana cards, there are strict rules on how and when you can possess it, even if you have the appropriate medical card. Those are taking up a substantial portion of local prosecutions because of the nature. And so I think that that's constantly being looked at. If anything's going to get changed, it will be that.
Thanks.
All right.
Changing dramatically.
Well,
I would also add that this is not a free pass, that
Correct.
most certainly nobody should leave here with the understanding that one and done. It's not anything like that. I would also recognize that our officers have exercised a tremendous amount of discretion in terms of the tickets that they write and what they do, and this is an extra tool for them to be able to use. You don't have to write something that is a misdemeanor anymore, and you don't have to pretend that it's a curfew violation. When we have an officer that pulls over a car of 3 minors that have been drinking, officer recently exercised the discretion to have them sit in the police department and then come in and have their parents pick them up with a nice explanation as to what happened. I think that's good law enforcement. I don't think that you should take the future of a minor when there is so much competition out there for college and scholarships and have them put in the position of having to defend something like this. I think it makes sense. We've all made mistakes when we were younger, even when we've been older. That's why we have erasers that are worn down on pencils, but this is an opportunity for the minor to take one on the chin and probably one in the pants when they get home from their parents, and move forward and not have that scarring their record, whether they're looking at a military academy or college or scholarship.
Well, 2 different things. First, one of the things that we were experiencing that would come up and that you would hear about is that you'd have a minor that made a mistake. Everybody aware and involved, and that's the second thing I want to go to is working with our current department. Between me and all of them, and certainly with all of them, we pretty much know most of the minors that are on the island, and especially with their discretion, know if it's somebody that's repeatedly making bad decisions or if it's somebody that just chose to make a poor decision on a given night. But what was happening, we were finding, is that the majority of them under the previous statute allowed you to take a probationary period, so you could plead to it. And it would go away if you did it. The problem was that was being reported for 6 months. So anybody that was trying to get into the military academies, scholarship funding, that was still appearing on the record. And in essence, you had to report something on month 5, when on month 7 would no longer be on your record. So there was that end of it. On the other end of it, the good thing is that for those that don't find that the first time that they need to correct their ways and take it, the penalties are still in place here to go forward. That if we have somebody that's just choosing to continue to make poor decisions, the law is still as stringent as it was.
Any other comments, questions for Mr. Sorty? Okay, this is an ordinance, members. I think it requires a roll call vote.
Correct.
So I'll start. Mr. Bletcher.
Aye.
Mr. Nelson.
Aye.
Clerk O'Connor.
Aye.
Mr. Treasurer Van Oss.
Aye.
Trustee Budney.
Aye.
Trustee Malvesto.
Aye.
Supervisor, aye. Motion carries. Thanks for the work on that. And good. Let's see. Well, there's one more public safety issue.
Mr. Supervisor, I would move to purchase, maintain, and install a handicapped child in area sign in the area of 8601 Stout Street. The sign is needed for a 6-year-old is hearing impaired.
I'll second that. Background?
History and purpose on this is the Groseal Police Department has received a request in the area of 8601 Stout Street. The police department will purchase, install, and maintain the sign as requested by Wayne County Traffic Services Division. The cost for this project will be $278. The sign is needed due to a 6-year-old child who is hearing impaired. And I think that's self-evident that that is something that is required as a health and safety issue, and that's what we are first and foremost about.
Chief?
Just so you know, when I get these requests, what I do is I go out and I review the area. I take a look at it. In Stout Street, I will tell you, we have 2 issues on Stout. We have had complaints of speeding vehicles, and we also do not have any signs. If you look at Stout Street, what the statute states is that when you come off a road onto a secondary road, so if you come off East River to Stout, you'll see a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. But it's like 100 feet from East River, and you'll see nothing all the way down the street. So one problem that we have when we got requests to use our radar signs is we need a pole to put it on. So when I looked at this area, I definitely believe this is an area that would definitely justify a handicapped child in area sign, but it also gives us a pole to put the radar sign so we can double hit that street for speeding vehicles. We've done radar checks on that street. That means we put cars posted there because we cannot put the sign, as I just stated, on there. But in review of this, I believe we have a few others on Grosse Hill in certain areas, one on HCL and one on Knutson that I requested from the county. And before I can petition the county, I do need a resolution that states that the township will pay for it, maintain it. The police department will pay for that. I do have a couple line items I can use for that, and I believe that's important enough for this area. So I would ask you that you support this motion so I can now apply to the county to get a permit before I order the sign and have it placed in. And that's the background of it.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for Chief Porcelli? There are no sidewalks on Stout either, are there?
Correct. No.
So it's fairly narrow, a lot of trees, a lot of obstructions to vision.
That's correct.
I think the sign with the radar notifier on it would get people's attention. Okay. Well, those in favor of purchasing, maintaining, installing a handicapped child in the area sign in the area of 8601 Stout Street for the safety of a 6-year-old child who is hearing impaired, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Halloween. I will take this one. All right. I'm going to recommend the Grosse Hill Township Board of Trustees approve the hours between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Wednesday, October 31st, 2018 for the purpose of Halloween trick or treating in Grosse Hill Township.
Report.
Give that to the treasurer. Moved by the supervisor, seconded by the treasurer. We do this every year. We have to define the time when the township officially allows the kids to go out trick-or-treating. I will be petitioning, of course, all the drivers to be extra careful when the little goblins are out running around. Questions, comments from the board on this? Chief, go ahead.
Actually, I'm seeing Andrea, and I think maybe she's going to announce something during the supervisor's report, but do we still have the Happy Halloween on Macomb Street the Saturday prior to? Okay.
27th. Yep. Did we not have, Chief, in times past, if you had questionable, if the kids came back with something questionable, you'll be there at the station?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's anything that comes home with your children, don't be afraid. Either, we tell them you got a choice. You can either, if it's any question about it, throw it out or bring it to us. We'll look at it. Now, we don't have the ability, obviously, to see if there's something in it, maybe what it is we have, like if it's something hard as opposed to chemical or something like that. But anything that you believe is wrong, you got one of two things. Throw it out or bring it to us. We'd be more than happy to try and look at it, try to decipher what it is. The old, I shouldn't say old times, we haven't had this in a long time. Anything come in that we needed a metal detector for, but we have them. We have metal detectors at the station. We can see what's what if there's a problem, but feel free to come to us for anything. But if there's anything that I can just suggest, if there's anything that you think is wrong, just doesn't look right, or is even partially open, just throw it out. Kids get so much candy. The dentists do real well, but it is what it is. We're there for you if you need us.
All right. Thanks, Chief. Any other questions, comments?
We should ask, will Public Safety be giving out anything on Hooray for Halloween on Macomb Street Saturday?
Sure. Anything else? Those in favor of approving the hours between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Wednesday, October 31st, 2018, for the purpose of Halloween trick-or-treating in Grosse Ile Township, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. That will carry. Thank you. And again, I'll be reminding you, it's getting dark early. Watch out for the kids. Please. Mr. Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I move that the Township Board, based upon the recommendation of the Grosse Ile Police Commission, promote Sergeant Kenneth Pellin to the position of Patrol Lieutenant at the salary of $75,750, effective October 23, 2018.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Bletcher, seconded by Trustee Budney. Who's going to background? Do you want to pick it up?
I'll do the background, Mr. Supervisor. Deputy Chief Warnick was recently promoted to Chief of Police as of January 1, 2019. Deputy Chief Warnick was lieutenant before Deputy Chief position. The lieutenant position is open and needs to be filled. We recommended the Township Board approval to promote Sergeant Kenneth Pellin to the position of Patrol Lieutenant. These promotions are needed due to Chief Porcerelli's future retirement date of December 31, 2018. I would add to that the following notation. I have spoken with each of the board members. I spoke with Mr. Budney on Thursday, and he indicated that he would support that. I spoke with Trustee Malvesto on Saturday, and I also spent a number of hours with each member of the board, cumulatively, number of hours, including Mr. Van Oss on Sunday, Clerk O'Connor Sunday night, and Trustee Nelson on later Sunday night, and with yourself, Mr. Supervisor, today. I promised today that I would come in here and advocate very effectively for Ken because I think of what he has done. He has an outstanding record. I believe he is the best person for the job. I've also spoken with Chief Designate Warnick, and I asked Mark on 2 occasions, where do you stand on that? I'm not going to go in and belabor the drama we've had for the last several months. What I'm going to say is Chief Designate Warnick said it best. He says, I have 100% confidence in Ken Pellin. I spoke with Brent Harden about this. He has 100% confidence in Ken Pellin. I spoke with Officer Pellin for several hours on Saturday and believe that he will do an absolutely outstanding job. I am very, very confident that he will be able to make this township a better place. He has some ideas that he would like to present to the deputy chief and the chief. He indicated to me in no uncertain terms that he understands that he reports to the commission, but that his boss is the deputy chief. He has another boss that's the chief, and he has further bosses that include Township Manager Dale Ream and this entire board. There is no hesitation that I make with Ken coming and then deciding at some point to move back into a different position.
I don't believe that Ken Pelland is anything but the best person for the job. I wholeheartedly ask this board to unanimously approve him and would ask that we do that tonight at our earliest possible moment.
Question, Mr. Treasurer.
I'm probably going to say something out of line here, so bear with me, but I've been known to do it before. First of all, I want to apologize to you, Ken, for the folly that went on at the meeting where we didn't add it to the agenda. That had to be embarrassing for you and your family. I know it was embarrassing for me and members of this board. The reason for it was, even though it was missed, was an action item of this type is not added to an agenda. It is part of an agenda so that the board has time to research, talk, and make a decision for that. And unfortunately, that was misunderstood by members of the board and members of the commission. And we all got chastised greatly for screwing with your abilities and your future, and in no way, shape, and form was any of us questioning your ability to do that job. And I want you to know that, because I don't ever want that to happen again. I really felt bad for you and your family at that point. I have nothing further.
Comments, questions? Put my glasses back on. Those in favor of promoting Sergeant Kenneth Pelland to the position of Patrol Lieutenant at a salary rate of $75,750 effective October 23rd, 2018, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. It's as good as it gets.
Thank you. The only thing that I'm going to say is, for 26 years I've participated in just about anything you can in our department, and I see nothing changing whatsoever. Being the diligent person that I am, the officer that I am, I just wish to lead. That's all I want to do, and I'll serve you guys proudly. That's all.
Ken, in our last face-to-face conversation, we closed. I said, Ken, you're a good cop. As of midnight tonight, Ken, you're going to be a good lieutenant. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, this comes under rec. Mr. Nelson.
Thanks, Brian. I'd like to propose a motion to accept municipal credit funds from SMART in the amount of $10,184 to operate the 2018-19 Community Transportation Program.
Okay, moved by Trustee Nelson, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss.
A little history. This is a nice service that we're able to provide, take people to the doctor and lots of those kinds of things. So we have to put it every year, and it's a very worthwhile program.
Quick question. Does this also include the Meals for Wheels, or is that a separate grant that we work with?
Meals for Wheels is funded. I think that
I thought it was separate.
I think that comes out of the Senior Alliance, which is another. Yeah, it does. In fact,
transportation.
This is the transportation, and we get the $10,000 because we've opted out of having a smart bus come here,
right?
Which I don't think anybody in the community was interested in. This gives us the ability to fund transportation that one would assume some people would take SMART for, although we are getting a new van with a lift, which SMART may or may not have been able to accommodate. We've been doing this for as long as I've been supervisor, and it's worked well for the residents. Got any questions or comments? Okay, those in favor of approving the acceptance of municipal credit funds from SMART in the amount of $10,184 to operate the 2018-19 Community Transportation Program, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered? That is a good program. Thank you. And, okay, action item 7. That's yours, Mr. Treasurer.
Oh, I see. We're going to do this audit report. Make a motion to accept the audit report that Ann gave to the Township of Grosse Ile financial audit report with supplemental information for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2018, as presented.
Support.
Okay, moved by Treasurer Van Oss, seconded by Trustee Budney. We had the audit presentation. We had the few questions were answered. I'm comfortable going forward. Any other comments from the board?
Do we want to have
Mr. Georges, would you do you have any closing comments or any caveats? Anything that Ms. Darzniak missed?
Once a year.
Yeah.
Once a year.
say that louder one more time?
Ann didn't miss anything. I just want to say I want to thank Ann and her staff for being very professional. Everything was in very good shape. She talked about a couple of comments that we had or changes that were made from last year. Those are just cleanup things. We had a couple new Bulldogs on the account this year, some new staff. So anytime you get new staff, they're like squirrels looking for nuts, and so they're always looking for something. So they rattle the bushes, which is always good. So they kept Ann on her toes, but she did a great job. A couple things. Your fund balance is good for the general fund. You only increased it by about $25,000 or so this year, but that's perfect. You were budgeting very close to your expenditures. You were under budget from your budget by about $50,000 or so, so it was a very good job budgeting expenditures. Those are the kind of things we look at. Well, that's pretty good. You talked about the unfunded liability, which is huge. You're not the only city, nor school district, nor government dealing with that, so it's out there. I think it's a good thing. It's in the statements not only because people talk about it. Before it wasn't talked about, now it's talked about. So I think when you talk about problems, they get resolved. So I think that's what's happening. So it's going to be a long haul for most cities. But that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
No, it was good to get a second opinion. So thank you, Mr. Georges. Mike? Other questions, comments from the board? None offered. Those in favor of accepting the Township of Grosse Ile financial audit report with supplemental information for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2018 as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered. Again, Ann, thank you for a superb job as always. The new action item 8, Trustee Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I move to appoint Mr. Paul Anderson as chairman of the Grosse Ile Police Commission effective immediately.
Support.
History, purpose, and explanation of this is that Joseph Dixon was our chair. He resigned for the commission due to family matters. Mr. Anderson has been a member of that commission for almost 26 years. The police commission at the last meeting unanimously recommended another commissioner for the position. It has become apparent to me when I was making the phone calls over the weekend, lobbying, frankly, for Mr. Pellin, that I did not have the support of 4 board members for that appointment, and I therefore am asking that this township board consider and appoint Paul Anderson as the chairperson.
Questions, comments among the board?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. I attended that commission meeting. It was unanimous for Mr. Zalasko to be chair, and I would very much like to know why there's a problem with that.
Because four or more board members don't disagree, and I'm not going to.
So you're not.
I am not going to go any further.
Well, you won't. How about the other ones?
Fletcher, do you want to elaborate, or relying on what you recall from your conversations?
No. I have known Mr. Zalasko for a very long time. I considered him a friend. I consider him to be very good at what he does. But I am compelled, after speaking with 4 board members and after reviewing some of the events that have gone on in the last several months, to support Mr. Anderson as the next chief or next chairperson.
That's nice, but it doesn't even begin to answer my question.
That's all you're going to get.
Treasurer.
I'm asking the rest of the board. So evidently, there's some other people on the board who have a problem, and Brian doesn't want to say anything, so that's fine.
I'll make my comment on this thing. I was questioned on this item. I do not stick my face into the police commission. Never have. I don't stick my face in anybody's commission. Never have, other than the ones that I'm directly involved in. When the chairman or the liaison of that commission makes a recommendation to me, I have to take it for what it's worth, because I don't sit there and evaluate. There was a number of things that were said the other day by some of the commission members that I didn't agree with, but that has nothing to do with my decision. My decision based strictly on the fact that the supervisor and the liaison to that commission request that the chair be Mr. Anderson, and I don't have any reason not to support that.
Does anyone else want to respond to Mr. Budney's inquiry?
And as the township clerk, I find it two reasons that I'm going to try to be very careful here, because the candidate originally put forward was a dear friend and held my respect for many years, until a recent board meeting when I found that, yes, as a member of the public, you can come and mock us, you can come and giggle as we speak, you can come make comments to the board, but if you're an appointed member of one of our commissions, you deserve respect and we deserve respect, and we look for someone who has a temperament to lead a commission right now through some tough times. And I had a long conversation after a recent police commission meeting with Mr. Anderson, and I found that he listened. He wasn't afraid to talk to me. He listened to my points. He disagreed with me. He allowed me to disagree with him. I found that that is the temperament of a commission chair that we really need to have to handle a commission as important, but also as, I hate to use the word untransparent, but the fact that the police commission meetings take place in the public safety building without cameras. They, very few, I think, residents attend those regularly. I think it's really important that we have someone that we can believe will handle the meetings the way they're supposed to be run, and that's where I put my vote.
Thank you, Uda.
Mr. Nelson.
I'd like to echo Mr. Van Oz's comments in reference to liaisons. Sometimes maybe not, shouldn't be meddling other commissions. I wholeheartedly support Ted Van Oz and what he had to say. And let's move forward.
Other comments?
Yes.
Mr. Malvesto.
I did attend the past two police commission meetings, and I know that it was a unanimous decision for a different person to be named as chair. What I'd like to know now from Paul, Mr. Anderson, are you in complete agreement with this being put up for chair of the commission? Are you comfortable with this? I'm not sure that you were part of this decision, so.
Anything else?
It just does not seem like this is a board of seven members any longer. I'm very disappointed in this. But Paul, you have my complete support. I want you to be aware of that.
Other comments? With that, those in favor of appointing Mr. Paul Anderson as chairman of the Grosse Ile Police Commission effective immediately, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Carries unanimously. Again, Paul, thank you. Thank you, board, for the unanimous support. That concludes tonight's action items. Clerk's report. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Well, I also have a role as a liaison to the Planning Commission, the other PC of the township. And we actually do have a meeting coming up next Monday, October 29th, right here in this room at 7:30. I've been in contact with our chairperson, John Schweikert, and he has given me a few updates. I'm hoping I can make these sound as exciting as we used to say Island Fest meetings were. But the main focus, we believe, of this meeting is going to be the rezoning of the Bayview side of Hickory Island. And the planning consultant and the planning commission and the community have been working toward this for quite some time. Planning consultant Brian Borden will be making a presentation of some of the changes that are being proposed. And I think at the meeting following this, there will be a public hearing. So the process is that we make the presentation at one meeting, we hold a public hearing at another meeting for public input and public education, and then finally a recommendation is made and brought forward then to the Township Board. So it's a longer process than we imagined, but this is something that is serious and takes a great deal of thought and planning. If there is Chairperson Schweikert wasn't 100% sure the second part would take place because it depends on whether or not a concept review has taken place, but there may also be a presentation by West Shore regarding a rezoning, site plan, and marina application. And according to Mr. Schweikert, this could be potentially the biggest residential development on Grosse Ile in 15 years. So I think this has the makings of a very interesting meeting for the community, and I encourage everybody to attend. Then to clerk's report business, the election is coming up. We are, collecting your absentee voter ballots. The election is on Tuesday, November 6th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you require an absent voter ballot, they are available in the clerk's office. We are also open on Saturday, November 3rd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can come in and apply for and pick up a ballot. You can also vote it at the Township Hall. We have voting booths available for you. But this is the last day that a ballot can actually leave Township Hall. You can vote an absent voter ballot on Monday, November 5th, from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m., but you have to vote your ballot at Township Hall. If you have a college student who requires an absent voter ballot and they have not yet voted in person at a Grosse Ile poll, they need to come here to get their absent voter ballot. We will have to see their identification and get their signature to show that they are one and the same. If your students or anybody requiring an absent voter ballot has voted here previously in person, has been presented to a poll, that is not an issue for them. Brian Friel, Deputy Clerk Brian Friel, will be conducting a public accuracy test at 3 p.m. on Monday, November 29th at Township Hall. This is a massively exciting moment in the election cycle. Sometimes we've had one person from the public attend. We call that the Bob Buckley honorary position. But what we are doing is mandated by law. Brian creates and works on a test deck of ballots. We test every potential contingency on a ballot, and we run that test deck through every tabulator that we have and make sure that they're tabulating correctly. And for the public accuracy test, he reserves one machine to do it with the public watching. I think this is a big part of ensuring the validity and the accuracy of our voting process. There's always something in the news and about elections and potential tampering and so forth, and we just want to reassure the public here on Grosse Ile, the fact that we have a paper ballot means everything, because we can go back and look at the election ballot by ballot and recreate it by hand, counting if we have to. So we are not as worried about somebody hacking into our tabulators in the 3 seconds that they may be broadcasting a result. Everything that the county canvasses is actually a paper result and is delivered by one of our police officers, unfortunately later than we like on election night to Wayne County. So I do want you to know that we have the highest confidence in the voting process in Michigan. And with that, I do just want to congratulate Ken Pelland. He brought, I just want to share this moment. I couldn't really when we were voting. Ken has been the DARE officer here for many years. Raised many of our children alongside us. And I remember once pretending to be the dummy in one of your demonstrations. So that was fitting. But anyway, he had a picture of my son, Kiernan, who acted as a role model for the DARE kids. Kiernan was a senior last year. He is now an engineering ROTC candidate at U of M. And Ken still had a picture of Kiernan and the other kids that acted out as role models. It's a method that he has used over the years, bringing the generations of our students together, and he has built the community that way. I know he thinks of us as community, and so I also never questioned your qualifications or your integrity. Sometimes, political processes get ugly, but I too want to apologize under this report for that happening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Treasurer.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. The investment report for the month of September shows $13,168,847 invested in various accounts. If you go to the Treasurer's website, you'll see where all of them are. We're doing much better. We earned a total of $34,141 in interest, which is probably the highest it's been since I've been treasurer, or close to it. I think the year I was treasurer, we had a bunch, but that relates to about 1.25%. Summer tax bills are due. The summer tax bills due dated September 14th are now past due, and we have collected about 96% of the tax roll. We continue to collect summer tax payments with late penalties. The late penalty occurs at a monthly rate of 1%. And you can get your accurate bill, including the interest requirement or the penalty requirement, by calling my office, talk to Annette. She'll calculate that for you. 2019 pet tags are now available. The fee is $6 until the end of January 2019. The fee then increases to $12 on February 1st. Be sure to provide proof of your rabies vaccination when purchasing pet tags. I, too, would like to congratulate both Ken and Brent. Thank you for your service. I look forward to working with you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Move on to trustee liaison reports. Mr. Bletcher, is there a stone left unturned?
A couple of them, Mr. Supervisor. I have the privilege of sitting on two separate commissions. The Open Space Greenways Commission contract has been received for a Phase 1 environmental analysis for the purchase of Wright Woods as requested and voted upon and approved by this board. We have also reviewed the open space areas within a township that's being assigned to individual members to go into the open space, to go in on the trails and make sure that everything is going to be ready for next year when we put our budget together. This is part of our management and stewardship of the open space, and certainly part of the budget preparation. It's going to start January of 2019. Number 3, the Dump the Junk event was successful, steady traffic. Thanks to Lorinda, thanks to John. Appreciate everything that DPS did and appreciate the volunteers that came in, many from Open Space Greenways Commission. We generally meet on the first Tuesday of the month, but the first Tuesday of November is election night. And it has been requested by several members of the commission that we move that to a quieter time, quieter place. And when Chairman St. Pierre returns, we will be setting a new date on that, but that will be posted on the Groseal website, and everybody's invited. Come on in and see what we do. I also have the privilege of sitting on the Police Commission, and a couple of statistics I'd like to have everybody consider. For the month of September, we had 40 complaints that were assigned to the Detective Bureau, including 2 breaking and entering, 7 larcenies. Regarding juveniles, we had 1 mental health commitment for a juvenile, and we had 1 intoxicated minor who became violently ill and had to be transported to the hospital for treatment. As you can see, the MIP is just one layer of what we have to work with, but this was a medical emergency, and when you're found on a park bench and you're having those kinds of issues, it cries out for help. 12,000 plus miles were driven during the month of September. We had 4 operating while impaired, and 168 verbal warnings, 1 felony arrest, 28 other traffic citations, 222 stops were made. And our next meeting is November 20, 2018. The training that went on included the following. We had Detective Pellin, if I can use that term prematurely, graduated from Staff and Command School. Ken placed 2 100ths of a point from the very top of his class. An outstanding achievement, an outstanding accomplishment for someone who really puts his whole heart and soul into something. Patrolman Brozick attended the monthly dive training. Social media for law enforcement was presented to Sergeant Harden, Detective Vasquez, and Detective Ferguson. Lean security awareness training was done and with clerk dispatcher Alent, which is mandatory through the Michigan State Police. Crisis Negotiators Conference. Again, Ken Pellin went to the Crisis Negotiator Conference in Columbus, Ohio, and was involved with and learned new techniques and information in hostage negotiations. I would note that Mr. Pellin has also been involved with the Downriver community law enforcement as a hostage negotiator, and he has already received 1 life-saving award. So good job, good work, Ken. There was also an internal investigation affairs seminar that Ken and Detective Chief Warnick went to, and they learned complaint and procedural responsibilities. One final thing, Chief, I don't know if this has been cleared up yet or not, but there was jewelry that was found in the township, and it was variously described as a piece of jewelry found while a lady was walking her dog on the bike path near Meridian Elementary School, and the ring has a value of between $3,000 and $5,000. Has anybody claimed that? So if anybody out there in the community can describe that, I think it'd be worth coming in and looking for it and claiming it if you can certainly identify it as your own. And no, Mr. Budney, you don't get to leave the meeting early. I have nothing further, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Bletcher. Mr. Budney.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I was thinking of having a ZBA meeting this month, but after listening to the clerk and the Planning Commission, we don't want to go up against that, so no ZBA this month. DPS meeting will be the second Tuesday of November, which is the 13th, and the election or the voting is on the 6th. Is it the 6th? So we will be discussing where we stand with our roads. So it might be interesting to come to that. I too want to congratulate Brent, Ken, and Paul on their certainly Brent and Ken on their promotions. Paul, I'm not sure it's a promotion, but I know you'll do well. So congratulations to all you guys. And that's it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Budney. Mr. Malvesto.
All right. As far as fire, calls to date, 546. And the numbers just keep turning over. We've had a very busy fire department, volunteers, EMS, and fire as well. I'd like to keep, like everybody, keep this in mind. It's that time of year. The deer are active. In the evening, in nighttime hours, just keep your eyes open and keep your speed down. We don't want any more deer and car accidents than are necessary. To both Brent and Ken, I want to extend my congratulations to both of you as well. I've had an opportunity to speak with both of you. You guys have been built up pretty well tonight. I don't need to throw any more in there, but I'm very confident in your abilities and what you're going to bring to the police department. And Mark, I think you got a wonderful team working for you now. So, of course, this doesn't start till January 1st, but I want to be clear on that. Other than that, sorry, Chief. Other than that, I'd just like to make it clear as far as transparency and police and/or I can speak for the fire commission meetings. I think I'd be speaking for the police commission meetings as well. On many occasions, discussions are had in regards to calls that were made and that sort of thing. It's not something that I think anyone would want to have a member of their family's name on TV. So the meetings are for the most part open. You're welcome to attend, but again, the reason being is a number of times is discussions go in some depth, and it's not it just wouldn't be appropriate to have some of those items out there televised. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Malvesto. I'll move on to Mr. Nelson.
Thanks, Brian. I have the rec department agenda and what's going on for the next few weeks. First of all, the next CRC meeting is Thursday, December 6th at 6 o'clock in this room. The next festival and community events meeting is Wednesday, November 28th at 7 p.m. in this room. We are still accepting winter storage contracts for Water's Edge. The senior luncheon this Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. at Centennial Farm. It's $10 per person. Call Water's Edge at 734-675-2364. The menu is oven roasted chicken, kielbasa and sauerkraut, honey glazed carrots, mixed green salad, rolls and butter, food by TV Diner. And a hooray for Halloween costume parade this Saturday, October 27th. Line up at the Goldsville High School at 10:15 a.m. Parade starts at 10:30. Then on to Trick or Treat on Macomb Street. And that's Kim's report for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Move on, Township Attorney, Mr. Sorty.
Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, I just have one quick thing for you. We went over a little bit of just some of the interactions with me and our staff, the detectives. And over the last few months, we've been discussing, actually probably even a little bit longer, with excuse me, I'm just thinking about the right way to say this, with the certain preferences of some of the 33rd District Court judges. We want to open up the opportunity for some additional leeway as far as plea bargains are concerned without completely dismissing or removing a charge. So with that, we are looking into, and I will be proposing to you shortly, a draft of an ordinance on the regarding causing an unnecessary response. If anybody has any specifics, I'll be happy to discuss them with you. But I think that should be coming before you shortly as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sorty. Township, Mr. Ream? Okay. Well, let's see what stone left unturned. Our next meeting will be the 26th of November, so we'll only have one board meeting in November. Between now and then, Wayne County is hosting their final hazardous waste collection. It is at the Wayne County Community College Downriver Campus, 21,000 North Line Road in Taylor. This is where you get rid of your old paint, any chemicals, the hazardous, and I'll just read the list. Household paint stains, dyes, floor wax, floor care, furniture polish, pharmaceutical waste, non-controlled substances only, nail polish, glue, fertilizer, lawn, chemicals. Long list. Antifreeze, fire extinguishers, mercury thermometers, computer, cell phones, all that stuff. It's they're really neat to see. It's really well set up, and this is, again, look around, get rid of the old paint, the old stains, the old stuff that you're afraid to deal with, and let Wayne County dispose of it properly rather than just coming over to the township and throwing it in the township dumpster. Ladies' night. Do you want to cover it, or just let me give a time? Angela. I'm sorry. I probably didn't. Saturday, November 3rd. Thanks, Mike. 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thank you. Now, I'm sorry. Angela?
Well, I know I broke it. Here, first I'll talk about that, even though we talked about that already. But the trick-or-treat on Macomb Street is this Saturday. The parade lineup's 10:15. The parade will start at 10:30, and then everyone, the kids and everyone will parade up and down, trick-or-treating at all of the businesses until 1 o'clock. This is really going to be difficult to see, but I wanted to make sure that I paid tribute to this. This is a new event as part of the event on Saturday. It's called Pumpkin Palooza, and it's a group that represents the Edward R. Aller Scholarship Fund for graduating seniors. So as a different kind of fundraiser, they're trying to do this Pumpkin Palooza. You can enter, carve the best pumpkin. People can enter to vote on the best pumpkin, and it's just really a nice community event. They'll be down at the Commons, and they will start out at 9 o'clock that morning. But if you would like to enter, they're asking that everyone email in their information to register in advance so they know what to expect. And the information for that is on the Macomb Street Facebook page, as well as on the website for the township. Then, back by popular demand, the famous or infamous Ladies' Night. This is the third annual, Friday, November 9th from 5 to 8. We'll have check-in again at Macomb Commons. And every year we get a few more businesses to participate. Last year we had, I think, 18 businesses participating that's staying open after hours and providing some goodie to the ladies. And everyone's moving up and down the street. It does get a little chilly, so dress warm. But the Recreation Department has also agreed to provide some small group transportation. We have the van that can seat 6 passengers at a time, just to kind of help get people up and down. And then we have less cars. But it is fun seeing everyone parade up and down the street. Enjoying. And then because our next meeting is not until late November, I wanted to also talk about 2 other events that we have going on in Macomb. The Lights at Lions. This is the 3rd annual where we light up Lions Park. If you would like to sponsor a tree and decorate it, a group, a nonprofit, a business, an individual, just contact the DDA or myself, or come into Township Hall. Andrea can take payment. It's $65. That includes the placement of the tree, the lights, and the sponsorship sign, and then you come out and decorate it. And last but certainly not least is the Island Glow. This year, I wanted to make it a point. This year, we changed the date of the Island Glow. It's usually on the first Friday evening in December, which also corresponded with the Boar's Head Festival. So we did move it up to November 30th. That way we can enjoy the tree even longer, too, in front of Perdino's. So Friday, November 30th at 6 p.m. is the annual Island Glow tree lighting. That's it. I think I covered it. Okay. Thank you, Angela. I'm the liaison to the Downtown Development Authority, but I let Angela cover all the good stuff. So thanks for the update. Okay, so less exciting stuff, but I think you need to know. The Medicare Guru will be at the high school, and that was the name that I got from Rotary High School, Grosse Ile High School Auditorium, starting 6:30 p.m. tomorrow evening. It's free. Rotary will accept a donation, but it's a free presentation. As I'm in a couple years into Medicare, there's a whole lot I don't know
there's a whole lot. Those of you approaching it need to know. It's it should be time well spent. Hopefully, you get your questions answered before they cost you money. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's important to me. It killed my mother. It's going to. One in eight women will develop it. It's not something you can wish away. So get checked, and obviously early detection is the key. I hope I reminded somebody, maybe, but anyway, get it done. And the Holiday Boutique is opening on the 23rd. That's the Friday after Thanksgiving. I used to make the mistake of saying if they don't have it, you don't need it. Now I can say if they don't have it, you better go down to Macomb Street and check the shops and merchants there, because if the boutique doesn't have it, they'll have it, and you don't need to go anywhere else other than the Holiday Boutique and Macomb Street. So I hope I haven't offended anybody, but that is the Historical Society's biggest fundraiser. It kind of keeps them solvent, and it's a lot of fun. It's pretty much locally crafted stuff, and it's a lot of work for the volunteers who do it. I'm sure Mrs. Walker will attest of the fond memory she had of doing it for many, many years. So hope to see you there. That concludes my report. With that, we'll open up to public comment. 3 minutes, any topic. We've covered a lot of territory today. And Mr. Heil has volunteered.
Before I start that public comment, Brian was talking about the Medicare at the high school. Chuck Moyer helped put that together. He did a lot of work there, and I had a reasonably lengthy conversation about that speaker. This lady is very dedicated to what she does. She literally took 9 months off of work to study and become more adept at analyzing Social Security benefits, which when you reach 65. She seems to be a very sincere person, and it seems that in many cases people will take opportunity to buy some other policy for their coverage, B, C, whatever. She gives some plain factual information that tells it as it is. I'm fumbling for words right now, but he was very sincere, and I think very much impressed with her sincerity. If you have questions, and of course every year this is about the time when that's an issue.
The enrollment period is open.
Yeah, I would urge anybody who cares. I'm going to go there myself, but I think it would be time well spent. Now, the reason I'm basically here, you guys have covered a lot of topics tonight, but I'd like to know, do we know anything yet from Wayne County or the state about the condition of our roads and what's involved in their future? Do we have any engineering reports? Do we have any statement of condition?
Bridges or roads?
Bridges. I'm talking about bridges now. I mean, we've talked about roads here tonight.
Bill,
we've talked about a lot of things, but I'm concerned about the bridges.
First of all, Bill, I owe you because you reminded me of something else I wanted to announce. You reminded me of bridges.
Go ahead.
And so the 24th, this Wednesday, there will be some routine maintenance on the Grosse Ile Bridge. Let's see. The
county bridge?
The county bridge, yes. They're going to close for 1 hour in the morning starting at 10 a.m. to move equipment onto the island, and 1 hour in the afternoon starting at 2 p.m. to move equipment off. So plan accordingly. October, those 2 hours. I'll get those posted. But Bill, thanks for reminding me. I got this from Bernard Parker. If they can't get it done on the 24th, it'll be the same times on October 31st. But we'll get that pushed out through Connect. But okay. Thank you for reminding me. Pick it up where you left off.
Basically, what I'm asking is, do we have any hard information? I mean, you mentioned several weeks past, we have 10 small bridges that are in various stages of disrepair. And what happened, and the reason for this question, is that I live very close to that one on East River. It's fine that we need new road repairs. I mean, that's necessary. If we have a bad road, we can still drive over it, or we can take an alternative road. But in at least 3 cases, Alba Island for you, Ted, I'm off of Miso going on past there. If that bridge goes down, we're stuck. I think there's one over on South Point, just south of you, Brian. It's in good shape, I think, right now. But if that bridge went down, anything south of you would be in trouble. Do we have anything in hard engineering remarks that tell us the condition of these bridges, what they need, what it'll cost to repair them, and where the money is coming from? Have you gotten anything from Wayne County or from?
I have not. The methodology for repair and the cost to repair. The latest information I have is they're still on schedule for the support piers to be repaired the spring of 19.
Is that for the county bridge?
For the county bridge.
Okay, I was concerned more. I care about that. I was asking mainly about the little bridges, or little $2 million bridges.
I have no, other than they were listed as the DAPT-in bridges, and I don't know if they're researching repair procedures. I don't know.
Can we FOIA for that? The reason I'm saying that with a little bit more firmness than I have in the past is that if we can't prepare, where are we? If we have no alternative, how do we go to work? How do we get hauled off to the hospital in an emergency? How do we buy groceries? I mean, we need these bridges for our life.
Well, I mean, Chief Murdoch and I are pursuing the emergency repair if we lose a bridge.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't want to say hopefully, but preferably we will have them repaired. It's just going to take a lot of money.
Well, and if money is the issue, maybe we have to be trying to figure out what's coming from where, so that if we have to be prepared for it, we've got some foresight to be thinking about that. It's just that when there's no other alternative, that's terribly serious. And with a bridge, it could technically cost somebody their life. And so, while I am in favor of the roads, but at the same time, I just recently thought we don't have alternatives, and that fired me up a bit. I just wanted to bring it.
Bill, on that, Wayne County doesn't have bridge money either. They have to get that money from the state and the federal government. So that's just another complexity in the issue, because there's no millage or anything out there for them to have bridge money. So they have to go looking for it too. Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to us because we'd like to know as much as you. But Brian does keep in constant contact with Wayne County. The commission is in contact with Wayne County, and we're constantly asking. But if they won't give us anything, because they tell us that they don't have anything new. There's no reason to believe they're hiding anything. So
could we FOIA the information?
FOIA, what information are you going to FOIA?
Well, I mean, they've known.
I'm sure you can.
I have an idea of what I'd be asking for. I'm not asking that I do it. I'm asking that we have people who make decisions and have that responsibility do it. By now, we've had our bridges noted as hazardous for about 6 months. And in that period of time, there had to have been something that went on even before that, where they looked at those things and determined that they had a problem. There's plenty of time in 6 months to go back and analyze that and hang a price tag on it, and at least be somewhat transparent about what the possible sources of funding are.
Part of the problem is not hanging. You simplify because you're only talking about Grosse Ile. When Wayne County looks at it, they look at it for the whole county. So they're looking at all their bridges in Wayne County, not just Grosse Ile. So they know what kind of
suggestion then.
They know what kind of money they're getting in, and they make their priority list, knowing the seriousness of various bridges. So I mean, it's
time consuming and people are looking. But I think that one effort that I could suggest here that would be appropriate. If we're dealing with a bridge like the one Ted needs to get off of his island, or the one I need to get off of mine, as compared to, say, ferry. If we lose ferry over the canal, that's a bad thing.
No,
but there
right.
are alternatives. We don't have them. And I'm saying that around this county, those in my mind, and I'll admit that, require a bit of a higher priority because there's a bigger impact from the loss of them. And you could ask that when they look at them and finally get them analyzed and start lining the soldiers up to march, put those guys at the head of the line. Because if we're all sitting there patiently waiting and somebody dies on one of those bridges, it isn't going to be funny anymore. Not that it's funny now.
Hey, Bill, we're way past.
Oh, I know that. Thank you for giving me
I understand your concern, Bill.
Thank you. I'm not only concerned for me, I'm concerned for an awful lot of other people.
But Bill,
yes.
And I appreciate what you're saying too. But I think what Mr. Budney was really driving at is the priority list.
That's
And
what I'm
while-
talking about.
Yeah, but the bridges you're talking about cover maybe 100 homes, and the county has bridges that they're dealing with in communities where 100 people cross a bridge in
A
20
minute.
minutes, right?
I know that.
So it's just like our roads. We are at the end of the county. We are not a pass-through. And so unfortunately, we
If
don't get
something
the
goes
attention
wrong, it's
that we
not, we're going to
deserve.
be a statistic that we don't want to be.
I agree with you. I'm
I'd like to
just
see
saying
us try to
it's,
grip that.
it's hard to get attention when
we
you're
are.
small.
Bill, we are. Believe me, I mean, we're asking all the time, but that's all we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heil. Other comments from the public present tonight? Were you raising your hand, Mr. Lemoyne? Nope. Oh, you're just saying no. With none, unless I missed, with none offered, we'll take a vote to go to closed session.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Budney. Seconded by Trustee Bletcher. Let's see. Let's do a roll call. I can't go wrong with that. Mr. Malvesto? Aye. Trustee Budney? Aye. Ms. Treasurer? Aye. Supervisor? Aye. Madam Clerk? Aye. Mr. Nelson?
Aye.
Mr. Bletcher?
Aye.
We will retire to closed session. Let's take a short break. Meet by 9:30.